All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, depending if you're in Mountain Time, Calgary. My name's Graham Helfrich, and yeah, I'm really excited. This is actually today is the first day we're teaching this nodal analysis course. Whitson's added some nodal capabilities to the software this year, and really excited to help you guys learn to use them. I will mention there's a ton of development that we're doing for nodal analysis. So even in 2 weeks, there's going to be some big changes coming, which I'll kind of preview at the end for you here. But yeah, this course we're probably going to have to repeat it every quarter or something, just because there's going to be a lot of development and improvements coming with it. So today we're going to learn kind of how we can do some really valuable nodal well-bar optimization today, and then we'll look at what's coming around the corner. Okay. This session is being recorded, and so I'll just give you a little debrief on how this is all going to work. I see we've got oh, great. Yeah, so this is a half day course. Actually, it's probably really going to take maybe 3 hours, 3 hours at the most. So we'll give you a little bit of time back, hopefully, at the end. It is being recorded. So after this, everyone who's registered is going to get a copy of this so we can review it if you like. Today is really going to be focused on practical case studies we're going to work through together. You're going to be repeating these steps with me. So for wellbore or pressure loss calculation theory, we've actually got a dedicated course that's already recorded on this, and so this is for people who really want to dive into all the pressure loss correlations, liquid holdup, really the deep theory behind it. This is available for all of our Whitson partners, and I'll include this link in the follow-up for anyone who wants to get into a lot of the calculations. Again, today is going to be more practical. We'll do a little bit of theory, but it's going to be a more practical course. This is interactive. What does that mean? It means I want to hear some questions. So if you have a question, you can either type it into the chat window here in Teams, or you can unmute yourself and just ask, just interrupt me. I'd love to hear your questions as we go, so we can make sure everyone's getting value and it's working. So all of this material is going to be sent out after the class. You're going to get a copy of it. So the first thing I want to do is make sure that everyone has software access. And so if we look in the chat window right now, my colleague Mo has pasted in a site, courses.whitson.com, and we're going to go there together. Okay, so let's do this. Okay, so we can just, everyone's going to follow along and copy as I'm doing here. So we're going to go courses.whitson.com. Okay. And you'll be presented with this screen. So this is where you're going to enter your email. And you need to use the email that you registered for the course. Okay. Now the password is, it's going to be this. It's going to be Whitson Nodal 2023 star. So capital W, capital N. Whitson Nodal 2023 star. And you can also find that password in the chat window. So I'm going to go ahead and log in too. Whitson Nodal 2023 star. Continue. All right. So yeah, Mo has mentioned in the chat window, try to use for internet browsers, Chrome, Firefox, or Edge. If you're using something else, there might be some problems. So everyone should be able to see this screen now. If you're not, or if you're having an issue using those logins, again, the email you registered for the course with and that password, just type something in the chat window, and we have some Whitson colleagues on here who will help us. So we are going to go down to at the bottom where it says Nodal, okay, right here. And you should see your email, okay? I see everyone's email. but it's different. So you should just see your email. Okay, I'm going to make a project for myself. You don't have to repeat this. This is just going to be for me. Okay. So you can go ahead and click on the row with your name. Okay. I'm going to find mine. So let's just pause here. Okay, we've basically made sure that we have access to the software. We're going to be getting started with it in just a second, but let me review kind of what we're going to cover today. All right. So first thing we're going to do is learn how to do bottom hole flowing pressure calculations. We are going to import a bunch of production history, some wellbore details. We're going to do a very quick PVT analysis just to understand how the fluid properties are going to work in the wellbore. We're going to review, the tubing size, the deviation survey. Are there any gas lift valves? Do we have any ESP in the well? Things like that. We'll review all those options, and then we'll perform those bottom hole pressure calculations. So if you're lucky enough to ever have a gauge pressure downhole or some sort of measured flowing pressure, that's like gold, right? We're going to be able to use that to figure out which of our bottom hole flowing pressure correlations are more accurate. And so we'll learn how to leverage that and even tune our correlation. Now we all deal with noisy data all the times. So we'll be showing how you can kind of smooth it out and make it more usable. Okay, so this will be example number one, doing our bottom hole flowing pressure. One thing to mention too is, a lot of wells are on gas lift, right? So the question we ask ourselves is which of those valves has been open through the well's history? We often might assume it could be the bottom valve, but it may not be. So we'll be able to look back and see which valves at which depths have been historically open and having the gas injected at those depths. We'll check that out. So the second example is going to be an oil well. And this is where we're going to learn how to create an inflow curve, an IPR, and an outflow curve. We're going to do a real quick bit of theory. We'll do our PVT, we'll create the IPR, and then we'll say, what happens if we flow the well naturally, no artificial lift? What if we install some gas lift at a low gas lift injection rate or at a higher gas lift injection rate? What will that mean in terms of our rate that we'll get from the well? Or if we're going to install an ESP, how do we predict that? And considering the depth between the pump intake and then the perforations, right? There's things that we have to account for. The third case we're going to look at is for a gas well. So again, we'll make an IPR curve, an outflow curve. We're going to create the IPR from actual production history. Now, this is going to be a well that just has casing. There'll be no tubing installed in this well. So we're going to figure out, when is the well going to liquid load? And what happens if we install a compressor? What happens if we install 2 7/8 inch tubing? What happens if we install 2 3/8 inch tubing, right? We'll do these sensitivities to figure out what that'll mean for both the rate and also delaying or fixing liquid loading in the well. Something else I'm going to show you is, let's say we have 50 wells or 100 wells. We want to really quickly review which of them are liquid loaded. When did they become liquid loaded? So we'll do that. After we go through those three cases, and we'll have a break in between them too, we're going to review what is coming around the corner for Whitson. Some of these things are coming out in just 2 weeks from now. A lot of these are requests that have come from you, and I'll be also asking for a lot of feedback, right? A lot of our improvements have really come from what you need and what you want. So we are committed really to making the best nodal analysis tool anyone's ever used, and hopefully it's going to be something that you want to use, that you look forward to using, and it's really easy. So we're going to show you where we are now, where we're going, and listen to your guidance. So before we jump into the first case study, I just want to hit pause and ask if there's any questions. So far, you can type them out or you can unmute yourself. Okay, nothing yet. So let's go back into Whitson here. Okay, so we should be somewhere like this, where the field at the top should say Nodal, and then the project should be your email. All right. So we want to import some well production history. What we're going to do is we're going to go over to this question mark up in the top right. This is the user manual. So click on the question mark button up in the top right. We are going to go over to the left where it says onboarding. Okay, onboarding, and we're going to go down to where it says mass upload example. So onboarding, mass upload example. Once we're there, we're going to scroll all the way down to the bottom of the page, and we're going to see that there's a few different examples that we can download. Okay, we're going to download the Eagleford Wells. That's the first one on the right. It says here. We're going to click on that here button. It's going to download a spreadsheet. And we're also going to go down to the Marcellus Wells example and click here as well. Okay, so we're downloading two files. One is the Eagleford Wells, and the other is the Marcellus Wells. Now these are going to be saved in our downloads folder on our computer. And I want to quickly show this to you. You can either navigate there and do this yourself, or you can just watch me for this step if you like. So let's open up one of these files that we've just downloaded. Okay, so what we're really looking at here is a template. This is a format that Whitson will let you mass import many wells at once, so you don't have to manually type everything to your project. So here I've got 11 Eagleford wells. These are their names. We happen to have the initial reservoir pressure here. For anyone who ends up doing rate transient analysis, these are some inputs, things like net pay and porosity. We're not necessarily going to need that for nodal analysis. Down at the bottom, we have another worksheet called production data. So this is where we have the well's historical daily rates, daily flowing pressures, any gas lift rates. And so as we keep scrolling down, we'll find that the name of the well will change to a different well, and then those rates will be reported. So this is a format that Whitson can mass import production history. Down there's another worksheet called deviation survey data. This is kind of what you'd expect, right? We've got our well name, we have our measure depth, and our TVD here. And one more worksheet over, we have our wellbore data. So we have things like our top perf depth, our bottom perf depth. We mentioned whether the well's flowing up casing or flowing up tubing. And this can even change, right? Historically, maybe we started with casing. That could be called configuration number 1. Later on, there's a date where tubing was installed. And so this is a way to honor those historical flow paths up the wellbore. Of course, we have our tubing diameters, tubing landed depth, all these things. So again, this is just the format that we're going to use to mass upload well history. So you can do this yourself. You can take this template, put your own well data in here, and bulk upload your well information into Whitson. Now, the other way that you might already be doing at your company is using an API connection. Well, this is something we will work with your IT to do if you haven't done already, but we can directly connect to your wellbore data, well view, for example, and directly connect to your daily production data. That just means whenever you open Whitson, you'll always be seeing the most up-to-date data. You won't have to type all this stuff in, right? So for now, we're going to use this kind of template, which is nice. But then if you're not using this API direct import yet, make sure you send me a note. You can even mention something in the chat window. We'll follow up to make sure we work to get that set up for you. All right, so if you have this spreadsheet open, go ahead and close it. Okay, we're going to go back into Whitson. I'll give you guys a minute to catch up. So we want to get back to this screen in Whitson. So it should say field nodal project, your email. Once we're here, we're going to go way over to the right where it says mass upload, and we're going to click on that button, mass upload. We see a blue cloud. We can click on that. And now we're going to navigate to our download folder, wherever we saved those two spreadsheets, that we just downloaded from the help file. And we're going to click on the Eagleford spreadsheet and say open. Once we've done that, we're going to go down to the bottom right and click save. Down to the bottom right and click save. So this might take a few seconds. Now we're importing all 11 wells, all the production history, all the wellbore data, everything like that.
Hey, Graham, quick question while it's loading. Just noticed, is it possible to drop 2 files at the same time, or is it just like 1 per time?
I haven't tried that.
One at a time.
One at a time. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Would be great to hear if you have some thoughts on uploading 2. That's great. Just like you mean like if you had 2 different data sets? While?
Yeah, no, I think we can do it in 1 as long as the template contains all the data, but I think I was just asking for too much.
Yeah, no, that's a very good question. So if you're using, you see there at the top where you have Whitson template, EnerDeck, Prism, drilling info, etc. So depending on which one you're working with, Whitson template contains everything into 1 file. But if you're doing like EnerDeck, then you have a production data upload and a well header data upload, which are two separate ones. So that's basically where you get the 2. You can upload the two files at the same time there. You do that.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, so my upload's done. Is there anyone else who's still waiting? Maybe just make a little comment if you need more time in the chat window. Okay, so we are going to look at well 4. Okay, good. We got someone still loading. Part of the reason is we've got a whole bunch of people on this course doing this at the same time, and Whitson is doing these calculations on the cloud, so we're kind of abusing the processing by clicking import all at the same time. Ariana, how's that going there?
It's kind of slow. I got an error when I tried to upload the Marcellus stuff. So now I'm trying to load again. So feel free, I'll take notes. If you need to keep moving, keep moving.
Yeah. Sure. Did you like right now we're just going to upload the Eagleford stuff. So are you doing both?
Oh,
right
it just went through. Okay, we're good to go.
Good. So I want to make sure everyone can see this kite. Well, 4 kite. We're going to click on that. Okay, and we are going to go straight over to the left here where it says production data. Okay, the way Whitson works is it works from top to bottom on the left here. So, you know, a lot of the work people use Whitson for is rate transient analysis, and it kind of walks people through the workflow for RTA. Today, we're really going to focus on nodal analysis. So we're just going to be using some of these buttons on the left, right, for nodal analysis. Let's click on production data. So right away, this 4 kite well, we're looking at the well's production history. It's been producing for 1,000 days, about 2.5 years. And if we use our mouse, we can kind of hover over the lines. We see our GOR, our historical injected gas lift rate. Way at the bottom, we've got our tubing head pressure and our casing head pressure, and then our different liquid rates here, right? Way down, if we can actually scroll down and see the same data just in a tabular format here. And yeah, so this is what we're looking at for this well's history. So this well is on gas lift. Let's go ahead and we're going to click on PVT. So up on the top left, PVT. So a lot of other maybe nodal or even RTA tools that you may have used before, they rely on correlations for fluid properties, for viscosity and compressibility and things like that. A lot of people who use Whitson are in liquid-rich plays, and Whitson actually has a big history with PVT, and so for that reason, we don't use correlations. We use an equation or state model, and it just runs automatically here for you in the background, and that's going to predict all of our fluid properties. So what we're going to do is this reservoir fluid composition card route. We're going to look to this little blue button on the right. It's a blue box with like a pencil in it. Let's click on that. So we're looking at the well's historical GOR, and we can grab this horizontal line and kind of drag it up or down. We can make our own interpretation. What we're really trying to do is match on the initial GOR for this well, and this is going to kind of help initialize our PVT. So, I'm approximately 750 scuffs per barrel. You can type it in, or you can just leave it kind of how you match it on the screen, whatever you like. So down below, once we've done that, we're going to click Save. Down to the bottom, we'll click Save. So right now, the equation of state, or EOS model, is predicting the fluid properties for this well, just based on the initial pressure, the temperature, and this GOR that we've put in. Okay, you guys may still be calculating, but the product we get is this phase envelope. So right now, this is the initial reservoir pressure up here. As we drop that reservoir pressure in the reservoir or in the wellbore, we're going to reach this bubble point or this dew point, and then we'll be in this window here. Something else that you get from this is back up here at this card where it says reservoir fluid composition. There's a little eyeball. You can click on that eye. So this is actually predicting our fluid composition for us all the way up to C30 plus. And again, that's done with the equation of state model done in the background. Again, all we've really specified here is our GOR, initial pressure, and initial temperature, and we're getting all this. The other thing that we may want to check out is up at the top, it says black oil table. Black oil table, we can click on that. Yours may be showing a result already. Mine just says it's calculating. I might just toggle back and forth here.
Might have to refresh the graph.
Yeah, that's a good point. So with web-based software, sometimes if the results taking a long time or it's not what you expect to see, just click refresh on your browser, and that'll usually fix it. There we go. So again, another one of these outputs that we get from doing this quick PVT analysis are these black oil tables, right, for oil and for gas. And if for some reason you want to export these to anything else that you're using, there's this little export button way in the top right. And then these are some of the different products that you may want to get Whitson's PVT results and these black oil tables out to. Okay. So the whole point is there's a lot of science going on here for this PVT, but the point is to make it easy, right? One last thing, and you can just watch me, you don't have to copy this, but some of you may know your API, or you may know the bubble point pressure. If you do, then there's this option, right? So initially we just picked GOR and we selected it, but if you have more information, you are welcome to enter it. Even if you have your full fluid composition, you're welcome to enter it. So a lot of people will just pick GOR like we did in this case because it's quick and easy, and they may not have any other details, so that's fine. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is go ahead and click on this bottom hole pressure button way over on the left. Okay, so I want to review. Let's look at our wellbore. What's going on here? So we've got this well data card way up here, and we're going to click on that blue square with the pencil in it. So here is our deviation survey. This is what we imported, kind of bulk imported it through that template, but you could also just copy and paste your deviation survey in here if you want. There's even a little icon here, a little blue picture that looks like a plot. We can click on that and it'll give us a little nice image of our deviation survey as well. Okay. Way up in the top right, it says well data. We're going to click on that. Well data in the top right. So this is where we're going to see our casing diameter, our casing depth, our tubing diameter, our tubing landed depth. So if we look way over on the right of tubing depth, I call this like the pancake picture, but we've got a 3 pancakes with a magnifying glass. Let's click on that. So these are all of our standard tubing diameters, and we'll leave this alone for now, but later on we're going to do some sensitivities trying different tubing sizes, and we're going to select some of these a little bit later, okay? We'll go up to the top right, close it. So let's talk about the options for our wellbore when we're doing our bottom hole pressure calculation. So the first thing, it says flow path. So maybe we only have casing in the well. Well, we would pick casing. In this case, we have tubing. Other times, you may be flowing up the annulus, potentially, right? Maybe you're flowing up the tubing and the annulus together. So depending what your wellbore configuration, you can pick these, and you can even honor these through time, right? If we want to add kind of chronological wellbore flow paths, we would just click this little plus button. We'd specify the date that a wellbore or flow path change occurred in the well's history, and then we could honor that. Okay, so we're flowing up the tubing in this case. The next option is, how do we want to calculate the bottom of flowing pressure? Meaning, we may have a casing or an annulus pressure, and we may have a tubing pressure. Those are both opportunities to calculate the bottom hole flowing pressure. So we can pick which pressure source we want to use to calculate the bottom hole pressure. I was asked a question a little bit earlier, what are the pros and cons of these options, right? Well, first of all, if you have a packer in the well, the quiet side it's going to do you no good, right? There's basically a mechanical block between your casing pressure and the sand face that's going to prevent you from using the annulus for if you have a packer in place. But if you don't have a packer in place, I really do like using the quiet side or the annulus as a pressure source if you have a dry gas well. The reason for that is the calculation down the quiet side, it's very simple. There's no friction, right? It's just a hydrostatic calculation, which is nice and simple. And then from the end of tubing down to the perforations, then we would do a friction and hydrostatic calculation. So it's always better to use something more simple if you can, in this case, using the quiet side. And now, why did I mention dry gas? Well, if you have a lot of liquids, then you have to worry about your fluid level in the wellbore. If we don't know what the fluid level is, then there's going to be quite a bit of unknown by using the quiet side to calculate our bottom hole pressure. Now, there's a handful of people who are actually measuring or recording the fluid level in the well. And if you do have historical fluid levels, in the same way that you import the daily production rate and flowing pressure, for every day you'll have a row of that. This is today's rate, this is today's pressure. You can also enter the known or the measured fluid level every day if you have a record of that. And so if you do, that'll be used to help calculate the bottom hole flowing pressure in Whitson as well. Flowing side is kind of quite typical because we're counting for friction, we're counting for hydrostatic everything, and it's less concerned about the fluid level. So those are some of the pros and cons about which pressure source you want to use for a bottom hole flowing pressure. Okay, under artificial lift method, we're going to talk about each of these. So if we were to pick none, it's pretty self-explanatory. This is a well that's naturally flowing with no artificial lift at all. We're going to come back to gas lift in a minute, but let's talk about ESP for a second. So if we pick ESP, it's going to ask us for it says gauge depth. What it really means is what depth is our ESP at in the wellbore. Specifically, the pump intake. What is the depth of the pump intake for the ESP? So this depth may be quite a bit above the perforations. So we would just enter maybe 6,000 feet, for example, and from that 6,000 foot depth of the pump intake, Whitson's going to convert from that depth down to the perforations to come up with the bottom hole flowing pressure. So it'll do a correction from the pump intake depth down to the perforations. If we have rod pump or plunger lift, these are cases where having a fluid level is really, really valuable, right? Rod pump and plunger lift, there's kind of this mechanical thing in the way during the flow on the flowing side. But in the annulus, if we can use the quiet side pressure and we have a fluid level measurement through the well's history, that's probably the best way to estimate the bottom hole pressure in cases on rod pump or plunger lift. If you don't have a fluid level, You can still use the flowing side. We just have to be selective with which data we pick to represent the bottom of flowing pressure. For example, kind of on the plunger lift, up cycle, that's a good time to sample the tubing head pressure to come up with a bottom hole flowing pressure, right? Now for the gas lift option, we can follow along here and click this. So we notice that we have different gas lift configurations on the right, okay? The first one is poor boy. So poor boy is when we assume that all the gas that we're injecting down the annulus is going all the way to the bottom of the tubing, entering the tubing from the bottom and coming up and lifting the liquids that way, okay? So poor boy assumes end of tubing gas lift location. This automatic option at the bottom is a little bit better. So automatic is taking the historical tubing pressure, the casing pressure, and it's calculating down the annulus and the tubing and figuring out where there is a pressure equilibrium, right? Where those pressures are the same in the annulus and the tubing, at what depth. And it's saying that is the depth where a valve exists and is open. That is the depth where the gas is entering the tubing. Okay, so this automatic option is better than poor boy because it doesn't assume everything is going to the bottom to the end of tubing. It's a little bit smarter. And so if you don't know all the valve details, the valve depths, the open close pressures, automatic is a good choice because it will vary the gas injection depth through the well's history, comparing the tubing and the casing pressures. The option we're going to use today is valves. Okay, so I want to make sure everyone has the same here. So flow path is tubing, computing through the flowing side, artificial lift method gas lift, and gas lift configuration valves. So once we have those all selected, we can click this little blue square with the pencil in it, and we're going to get this pop-up. I want everyone to click the plus symbol in the top right until we get 6 rows, okay? So we are going to enter some gas lift valve details here. I'm going to leave this up, so I want you guys to type these numbers in. What this is going to do is we're going to specify the valve depths, the open close pressures, and so through the well's history, we're going to be able to predict which of these valves is open based on these requirements for pressure. And so I'm going to leave this up. I'm going to just move my screen out of the way so I can type in these numbers as well. By the way, if you have these details in WellView or WellEase, any wellbore database, these details can be automatically populated in Whitson through the API connection, and maybe even through the bulk import template. I'd have to check, but definitely through the API connection. Okay, so I've got that finished. I'll give you guys a minute more just in case. Now, one thing to mention is what's with this bottom row? Okay, so this 8332, that is the end of tubing depth or tubing landed depth. And so what I'm going to let the software do is figure out which of these valve depths is going to be opened through the well's history, and then if I surpass the bottom valve, it'll basically go into the end of tubing as a pour by style if those conditions are met. And so I don't need the open close pressure for the end of tubing. We'll click save. Now, just before we calculate our bottom hole pressures, I want to hit pause ask if there's any questions about some of these options in terms of flow path, pressure sources, artificial lift methods. It's okay. Okay. Something very important is, notice I've got this little blue thing toggled on, calculate from gauge to sand face. I want to turn that off. So if you accidentally already click save, it's okay. We'll go back into this little edit well data square with the pencil. Go over to the right where it says well data, and make sure you have that thing unchecked on the bottom like I do here. So not on, but off. And then click save. All right, we're finally ready to push the button. So this button up on the top left, calculate bottom hole pressures, let's click it. Okay, so mine are done. We should get a bunch of nice colors here on the bottom. You guys might still be calculating, so I'll just wait a few more seconds. All right, is there anyone who does not have these results yet? Okay, I think we're all right. So what we've done is we've taken our tubing pressure and we are calculating the bottom hole flowing pressure. Why are there so many results? Well, it's because there's different pressure loss correlations that we have available to figure out what the bottom hole flowing pressure is. And we can see that not all the results are the same. This is intended to be a little scary, okay? So, you know, right here, if we use gray, our bottom hole pressure might be as low as 550 pounds, but for the exact same wellhead pressure and rates, Beggs and Brill predicts 2,000 pounds bottom hole flowing pressure. So a 1,500 pound difference. That's scary to me, right? That these correlations could have such big differences. But that's the point, is I wanted to show you that there can be a difference in these results. So which one should I pick? Which one should I trust? Well, this is an example where if you happen to have any gauge pressure or any downhole pressures that you've measured on the well, I would really make sure you try to use those in this case to help calibrate, or just pick the correlation that is closest to those measured downhole pressures. So in this case, I'm really lucky. We've got this black line. The black data is measured bottom hole pressure for this well, right? So we're really lucky. And I can see that the blue correlation happens to be Beggs and Brill. Looks like it is the closest to the true or measured bottom hole pressure. So that's valuable, because that means on the next well that I don't have a downhole gauge, I'm probably going to pick Beggs and Brill, because I've seen on this well it's the closest. So what if I could tune? How can I even improve Beggs and Brill further to be closer to this measured pressure? Well, let's go up to the top right. You're going to see a button that says tuning. We'll click on that. And the second row says Beggs and Brill. We're going to go way over to the right and click on tune. And then we'll say yes to the pop-up. Right now, what's happening is Whitson is adjusting the correlation, the liquid holdup, the friction factor, to try to make the correlation match the measured pressure even more. If we want, we click the show fit button on the bottom. It gives us a little preview of how it tried to match the correlation with the measured pressure. We can go to the top right and click X. And then we're done. We'll click save in the bottom right. After we've done that, we're going to recalculate the bottom hole pressure, the button way up in the top left. And now it's using that tuned correlation with Beggs and Brill to calculate the bottom hole pressure. Now, it might be tough to see, but it's better. It's a closer match than it was before. So personally, what I'm going to do is for the other wells that I have that are in this area, I am going to use those tuned parameters, right? I'm going to copy and paste these, or I can mass apply them. And I know that I'm going to have the best possible chance of having a reliable bottom hole flowing pressure using this tuned Bags-Brill correlation on my next well. So I just wanted to highlight that whole capability to try to come up with the best bottom hole pressure that we can get, right? The last thing we are going to do here is try to figure out if there's a way to smooth this historical bottom hole pressure trend. So up in the top, the side, our calculate bottom hole pressure button, there's a drop down. It says measured pressure well flowing gauge. We're going to click that drop down and we're going to select custom PWF. So again, that is up here. Click on the drop down, select custom PWF. Okay, we should see this. So right now we're looking at the measured gauge pressure, but in the top left, we could instead select Bags-Brill, for example. Okay. Now, obviously this is a little bit noisy, and especially if people are going to do rate transient analysis, it's always nice to have maybe a nice smooth pressure data set if possible. So in the top left, we'll click auto fit. So we see that now we kind of have this slightly smoother pressure trend that we've applied. You can even change the sampling frequency maybe to 40 if you want. Click auto fit again. You can play around with that sampling frequency, whatever you want. So part of the reason we're doing this is, the reporting issues with our volumes. And what I mean is we may have a daily record of oil volume and of gas volume, but our water volumes may be reported maybe every week, depending on when that happens. And so if in our production history, if it looks like our water is only being produced once every week, that can have a result on the bottom hole flowing pressure that we're calculating. It can overestimate it, right? So this is a chance where we can come into here where we're aware of maybe some known reporting issues, and we can grab any of these dots and just correct them to something that we might think is more reflective of what's happening in reality, right? Yeah, so once we're happy with that, we can go down to the bottom right, click save. Okay, so now we see all of our results here. Now, if you don't want to see everything at the same time, maybe we want to remove some of these visually. We've got this legend. So the legend is up here above the plot. So maybe if I click on the word gray, these other ones, Hagerdorn and Brown, I'm basically left with what I want to see, right? So what's really funny is, Whitson has all of this amazing PVT stuff, rate transient analysis, but it turns out this bottom hole pressure calculator is actually the most popular part of all of Whitson. A lot of companies who have set up this API connection to automatically import your daily rates and flowing pressures, this has become the gold standard for the bottom hole flowing pressures, for reservoir engineers and for production engineers. So if you were to copy this URL up here, right? It'll probably say yourcompany.whitson.com back when you're on your regular software. When you copy this URL, you can paste it to a colleague in your chat or in an email. When they click on it, they will come directly to this page and they will see the most up-to-date today's bottom hole flowing pressure, right? So this has kind of become the gold standard because of the PVT that we're accounting for, all the gas lift details, the whole tuning and calibration thing with the correlation, right? So there's only one more thing I want to show you for this, but I'm just going to pause real quick. Are there any questions about how we're calculating the well's historical bottom hole flowing pressures? Okay, so far. One thing I'm going to mention, you don't have to repeat this, I'm just going to show it to you. Let's imagine that we're not producing a well, but we're injecting. Maybe we have water disposal. or something, right? We're injecting production. So in the same place where we would have specified like our tubing size, our flow path, things like that, we've got this little gear wheel up in the top right. If we click on it, it says activate bottom hole injection mode. All that means is when we click this, it's going to take the production volumes that we've imported and assume that they're not production rates, but that they're injection rates. So by clicking this, when it does the bottom hole pressure calculation, it will come up with the bottom hole flowing pressure through time, but for injection, not for production. Okay. Last thing we
Graham,
want to, yes, please.
the one question, like, when calculating this bottom hole pressure, does it accounts for the gas lift injection right now, or when it will use that one?
It is, yes. So the question was, when or how are we accounting for gas lift for this well? So remember, yeah, so we've gone ahead and entered all those valve details, right? The depth, open, close pressure. And in the production history, we have the historical gas lift injection rates. So we have everything we need, right? So as soon as we clicked this button, calculate bottom hole pressure, the answer is yes, it is accounting for all of that to predict the bottom hole pressure.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Just to prove that, what we're going to do next is we're going to do a look back to see which valves were open during the well's history, right? We may assume it's the bottom valve, but is it? Let's check that out. So I want everyone to follow along with me, okay? So let's go down to this diagnostic plot, way down on the bottom left, diagnostic plot. Okay, and here we're going to click on this well 4 kite. That's the well we've been working on. Let's check it on. So right now you may see what I see. This is kind of like our default template. What I want you to do is we have this template drop down right here. We want to click on that. And I think you guys are going to see it under, you're going to look under company templates. Mine's a little different because of my role here. But if you go down to under company templates, you're going to look at something that says gas lift depth look back. Do you guys see that? Gas lift depth look back. Do you guys see that under company templates? Does anyone see that?
Yes.
Okay. So what we're going to do here, I'm going to make a correction here. So I'm going to take this step, and when I modify this template, everyone is it's going to affect everyone, because this is basically a company-wide template. So I want you guys to watch this step, because I'm going to do it and it's going to affect all of our templates at the same time. Okay, so you guys just watch what I'm going to do, because what I see here is my gas lift injection rate, my bottom hole flowing pressure, my casing, and my tubing pressure. So what I want to add is the historical valve that's been opened. What depth has gas lift injection been occurring at? And just and Mo's kindly added kind of a screenshot in the chat window too. So again, we're looking under template. We'll go down to company templates and pick gas lift look back. So what I want to do is I'm going to edit this. And you guys just watch this. You don't have to do this step, because I'm going to do it for all of us. We're going to click edit. So for this template, we're going to click edit right here. And I'm going to add a new axis, y-axis, and I'm going to look up the word valve. This is something we can plot. Gas lift valve depth. Okay. Save. So now we see this new black line. Now I want you guys to click refresh. So go ahead and click refresh on your browser, and you should be able to see the same thing, because I've made this, I changed this template for all of us now. Can someone confirm that when you click refresh, you're able to see this extra line? Okay, it's still loading.
Yep, I got it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, good. I see a couple of people say yes. So what I want to do is I'm gonna this red gas lift rate is a little bit in the way for me, and so I'm gonna move my mouse here. See, it says gas lift rate. I'm gonna move it until I see this up and down arrow. You guys can do this as well. So once you move your mouse to the point where you see an up and down arrow like that, I want you to hold your mouse button down and drag this out of the way. Okay. So now what we're seeing here, these little shelves, these are the historical depths that gas has been entering the tubing. Okay, we can kind of hover over it and see, 1,500 feet depth, 3,000 feet, 5,000 feet, 7,000 feet. I'm sorry, my gas lift rate jumped back up on me there. So now, maybe we've been assuming and we thought we knew what depth that gas lift was entering the tubing, but this is going to actually show it to us based on all the details you guys have for your open close pressures and your valve depths. So I think this is really handy. We can save this as a template later when we have more bottom hole pressures calculated. We can toggle through all of your wells and just at a glance see the historical injection depths. Okay, so that is the end of our first case study. We're going to take a 5-minute break, but I also want an opportunity to answer any questions so far. And I'm curious, like, I really find this exciting because I've used some other nodal analysis software in the past, and I have not been able to do this, so I find it pretty fun and exciting. Any questions or feedback? Okay, I see a thumbs up. So we are going to reconvene in Calgary. It's 12:27, so in 5 minutes it'll be 12:32, or in Texas it'll be 1:32. So let's get back here in 5 minutes, and we'll start with an oil IPR TPC in 5 minutes. So I'll see you guys in a few minutes. All right, we're back. All right, so let's get into this next case here. So we're going to make an oil IPR VLP case together. So first of all, the word IPR, that means inflow performance relationship, but it actually goes by some other names, deliverability curve, right? You've probably heard that, or even an AOF curve. AOF means absolute open flow. So we're just going to call it IPR, and we're going to talk about what it means and why do we even care about it. So, we've got 3 pedals. Respect to anyone who has 3 pedals on their car still. I don't, but when we push on the throttle in a car, what's happening? So, under the hood, this thing called the throttle body, it's opening. It's letting more air into the motor when we push on the throttle. And, the more we open it, the more power the motor is making, right? So we can actually really easily kind of plot the relationship between the position of our foot or this valve and the horsepower of a motor. So let's see what that looks like. So when our foot is not on the gas, we're just idling, we're kind of, our throttle position is at 0. We're not really making any power, right? As soon as we start to push on the throttle, we let more air in the motor and we start to make more power. If we mash our foot to the floor, we're at wide open throttle, we're making the most power possible, right? So this is nice because it gives us a nice predictable way to estimate, how much power are we going to make at different throttle positions. So this is a really similar relationship to an IPR curve. And so instead of horsepower, we're trying to predict the oil rate that a well can produce at different drawdowns. We think about this as basically opening the valve, making it easier for the well to flow. So when we're shut in, right, we have no drawdown. And another way of saying this is that, the pressure out here in the reservoir is the exact same as the pressure in the wellbore, right? There has to be a pressure differential for any flow to happen. So if our pressure is very high in the wellbore, we have no rate, right? We're shut in. As we start to kind of open the valve and reduce the pressure here in the wellbore, we start to draw the well down and we start to get a rate response. Okay. So, we lower the flowing pressure, we increase the drawdown more and more, our rate goes up, right? So this is what an IPR is. And then we can predict our absolute open flow or maximum rate at a theoretical, very, very low bottom hole pressure. All right, so the reason we care about this is, what happens if we add a pump or what happens if we add gas lift? The result of that is ultimately to change or lower the bottom hole flowing pressure, and we want to predict what the rate response will be if we do that in advance. So instead of plotting this as drawdown, the more typical thing we'll do is to plot the bottom hole flowing pressure on the y-axis here. So again, that bottom hole flowing pressure is located here, by the perfs in the wellbore. We have the high pressure out in the reservoir. When we're shut in, the pressure is the same in the wellbore as in the reservoir. As we lower the bottom hole flowing pressure, our rate will increase, right? So this is an IPR curve. How do we make it? Well, there's two approaches. We're going to start with the simple way. First of all, we're trying to predict the oil rate. To do that, we need to estimate this productivity index. I'll show you how we're going to do that. We also need an estimate of what that shut-in or what the reservoir pressure is today. And we need to estimate what the flowing pressure is going to be down in the wellbore by the perforations. This will be the drawdown in here. Now, practically, we don't always directly know what this productivity index is, but we're going to calculate it. I'll show you how we do that. So here's our formula. When we're above the bubble point, first thing we need to estimate is what our average reservoir pressure is. So there's a couple of ways to do that. You could shut the well in, let it build up for a long time. That may not be practical. The other way we can do it is actually using rate transient analysis. I'm going to show you how to do that here in the next example. And we're going to use a technique called the flowing material balance. This is where we can estimate today's reservoir pressure without shutting the well in. We're going to do that together later. Okay, so let's say we know that the reservoir pressure 2,000 pounds, right? Great, we know that. That's one input. This well is currently flowing. It's flowing at a rate of 100 barrels a day. Okay, and that is at a bottom hole flowing pressure of 1,200 pounds. So this is kind of like a sample that we can plug in to our formula, right? So we have our oil rate now. We know our flowing pressure is 1,200 pounds. And guess what happens? All we have to do is draw a line from here through here, and this is our IPR curve. And from there, we calculate this productivity index. So now we're able to change what this flowing pressure is, predict different drawdowns down in the well, and we can predict how that rate will change. This is the whole point of an IPR curve. Now, the reason this line is so straight is because oil is not very compressible. And so that's why we get a nice linear relationship. But once we drop below the bubble point, it gets a little bit more complex. So we've just kind of rewritten this Vogel IPR calculation, and we've added in a bubble point pressure term. So if we specify what that bubble point pressure is, that means we take our straight line, we specify our bubble point pressure, 1,000 PSI here, and it'll turn our curve into this sort of shape, right? So we have a nice straight line above the bubble point. We have a curved line below the bubble point. So Whitson software is going to do all of this for us, and that's what we're going to do right now, okay? Just any questions on this kind of quick theory review before we do this in the software? Okay. So we are in the Whitson software. We're going to navigate way up to the top left where it says projects. Okay, you're not going to see as many rows listed here. You are going to go and make an add project up in the top right, add project. And you're going to type in your name. I suggest your first and last name in case there's anybody who's lucky enough to share your first name. And we'll just type your first and last name, oil well, something like that. First name, last name, oil well. Once we've done that, we'll click save. Okay, and you will find your first name, last name, oil well. I want you to click on that row. Okay, so this is a project. We need to make a well. So instead of importing a bunch of production history, we're actually going to make this from scratch. Maybe you're just trying to plan a well, or you want to get something super fast. This is what we're going to do. So we're going to say add well up in the top right, add well. We'll call it oil well 1. And click save. Okay. That was interesting. So, okay, so everyone's got something here where it says field nodal project, your name oil well, and you've got oil well 1. We're going to click on where it says oil well 1. Okay. We're going to go straight down to nodal analysis. We're not going to do anything else. We're going to go straight down to nodal analysis on the left. So we should see this page, and there should be a bunch of kind of blank inputs, and that's what we're going to populate right now. So I'm going to share my screen here, and everything that you guys see highlighted in green, I want you to type those same numbers into your software, okay? I'm going to just do this for myself as well on my other screen. The reason we're doing this, if you remember back to the plot we had where we had, the IPR formula, and we kind of had our reservoir pressure, we had a kind of a sample rate and flowing pressure. That's exactly what we're entering here. And this is going to produce the IPR curve for us. Okay, that's probably enough time. I've got everything entered here on mine, and you should see an IPR curve. Does anyone not have an IPR curve showing up on their screen? If so, just type in the chat window or speak up. Okay, so just to review, on the y-axis, our IPR is going all the way up to basically like a shut-in condition where this is our average reservoir pressure, 5,000 pounds. Currently, the well's producing at 700 barrels per day and with a bottom hole flowing pressure of 3,600 pounds. So this is kind of like our sample. And so having that average reservoir pressure, our sample rate and drawdown is going to let us produce this entire IPR curve, and we can see kind of what's left on the table. What could our rate be if we could get that bottom hole flowing pressure way down? Now, you'll notice that I didn't specify my tubing depth, my deviation survey, all that stuff. I want you to guys watch me. You don't have to follow along, but I want to explain there's some defaults in here. So in the same place that we would have looked at our deviation survey, Whitson, we've got some defaults set in here, so you can just get started and just modify these if you need, right? So we've got a really simple deviation survey here. We're assuming 2 and 7/8 inch tubing. So again, there's just some defaults in here to get us started. So we're going to leave those defaults alone. I'll go back down to nodal analysis. Okay, so next thing we want to do is create our VLP curve, right? We also call it a tubing performance curve. Sometimes it's called an outflow curve. Up in the top left, we'll click Create VLP. That's that big blue button in the top left. So this is assuming that we are flowing this oil well with no artificial lift. We're flowing up the tubing, and we're flowing at a tubing head pressure of 1,500 pounds. So this is our current operating condition. It's kind of a baseline. This is where we're at now, so we can start to do some what ifs about getting this rate up even more. Is there anyone who doesn't have their plot looking like mine, with our inflow curve and our outflow curve together? I'll mention that this outflow curve, or the VLP curve, it's really considering all of the tubing hydraulics, friction, hydrostatic, to figure out what that intersection point is downhole at the sand face. All right, so we are going to save this case. So up in the top, it says save case. I want us to click on that, save case. We're going to give this kind of a descriptive name. We'll call it natural flow or free flow. And this is 1,500 PSI tubing head pressure. Something like that. Just something descriptive so you can remember what this case or this scenario is about. And we'll click save for that. All right. So what are some ways that we can lower the bottom hole flowing pressure on this well? Well, one way is if we can get some sort of pump at the wellhead, or somehow we can reduce our line pressure from 1,500 pounds down to 500 pounds. So let's go ahead and replace this tubing head pressure so it says 500 PSI. And then we're going to go up and say create VLP. Okay, our VLP curve should look a little bit different now. And if we want to kind of see both of the curves at the same time, let's scroll down and check the box on for our other case. Right, so way down at the bottom, we can check the saved case on that we had made earlier. So here's what we're seeing. Currently, we're producing 700 barrels a day at 1,500 pounds tubing head pressure. If we can get the tubing head pressure down to 500 pounds, we're going to lower our bottom hole flowing pressure, and our rate is going to go up to 1,300 barrels per day. Right? So, what's that? Almost 700 barrels a day increase. Awesome. So let's go ahead and save this case. By the way, a quick thing I do to save time with the naming is you can go down to your save cases. You can just highlight the name like I'm doing here. You can copy it, Control C or copy. Okay, and then when we go up and save this new case, we'll click on saved case. I can just paste that name and kind of modify it, say 500 pounds. It just saves me some time over typing it all from scratch again, and then we'll click save. Okay, so what are some other ways we can lower this bottom hole flowing pressure? Maybe there's no way we can get the tubing head pressure down to 500 pounds. What? Well, gas lift, right? This is why we do gas lift, is we're trying to kind of lighten the oil as it's coming up the tubing, reduce that hydrostatic load, and lower the bottom hole pressure. So right now we're gonna go by this new wellbore configuration text, and over on the right we see the blue square with the pencil in it. We're going to click on that little blue square. So right now this well is naturally flowing. We're going to change that. So under artificial lift method, we're going to change it to say gas lift. Now, remember the options before? We could pick pour buoy. We could specify all of those valve details. We could pick automatic. For this case, we're going to pick pour buoy. Okay, just so we can exercise the software, right? So now we're going to say gas lift, pour buoy. Once you've done that, we're going to click save down on the bottom right. Now, it's important that we get that tubing head pressure back up to 1,500 pounds, right? This is going to be a gas lift sensitivity where we keep the tubing pressure up high at 1,500 pounds. Now, we're going to enter our gas lift rate here, and we're going to enter 300. We're going to try gas lift at 300 pounds, or 300 standard cubic feet per day. Once we've done that, we're going to go up and click create VLP. Now, if your VLP box is gray like mine is, it's not going to work. So you can basically just click, after you enter 300, just click away, click anywhere else on the page, and that blue button will be available to produce your VLP. All right, so now we have a new VLP or tubing performance curve. So originally we're free flowing, 700 barrels per day. What we're able to see with pour buoy gas lift at 300 standard cubic feet per day, we're able to lower the bottom hole flowing pressure down here and increase our rate by about 150 barrels per day. Awesome. Let's save this case, and then we'll try another gas lift scenario. So we're going to save it up on the top right. We'll call this gas lift 300 MCF per day, 1,500 PSI tubing head pressure. We could even specify the casing pressure if you want as well. So whatever you want to do to make this name memorable. So I'm putting my gas lift rate and my tubing head pressure in, and then save. All right. Now we're going to increase the gas lift rate. What if we go from 300,000 a day to 900,000 a day for our gas lift rate? And 900 in for our gas lift rate, and then we'll say create VLP. I'm going to scroll down here because I want to look at these cases against each other. I'm going to check on my 300,000 a day gas lift case so I can compare, no gas lift, a little bit of gas lift, more gas lift, right? So we're lowering the bottom hole pressure as we go. So, for anyone experienced with gas lift, I'm sure you're thinking, we're doing this kind of deterministically. We're making very specific sensitivities, and there's going to be a point if we keep increasing that gas lift rate, we're not going to see any benefit anymore, right? Because all that gas we're injecting, it has to come up the tubing as well. And eventually there's going to be friction that we're going to be fighting by trying to get all that gas back up the tubing. And but so far we are seeing incremental gains here to reduce the flowing pressure by increasing the gas lift rate here, okay? The last scenario we want to try here is an ESP for this well. So under new well configuration, did I save this? 900? No, I forgot to save it. So I'm going to copy the name of our case down here that says gas lift 300. I'm going to copy that name. And I'm going to save this new case at 900. Just name it like that so I can keep track of this stuff. And then we'll click save. All right, so we are now going to make a new well configuration with this little blue square. And now we're going to change our artificial lift method from gas lift to ESP. So down on the left here, it says gauge depth. What this really means is the ESP depth that we're going to install the ESP at. And this depth is actually going to be the pump intake depth. So we are going to put it at 6,000 feet. This is about 1,000 feet above the perforations. We're going to do that on purpose. Okay, so we're putting our pump intake for our ESP at 6,000 feet right down here, and then we'll click save. Saves in the bottom right. To specify the pressure, the pump intake pressure of our ESP, there's a section here that says gauge pressure. And we're going to put in 1,000 pounds right there. 1,000 pounds for our gauge pressure. Once we've done that, we can go up to the top and click Create VLP. And we see a new VLP curve way down on the right here. Okay, I'm turning on both of my gas lift cases so I can just compare everything here. So again, what we've got are the case where we're free flowing naturally, injecting gas lift 300,000 a day, 900,000 a day, or an ESP with a pump intake pressure of 1,000 pounds, landed at 6,000 feet or 1,000 feet above the perforations. Now the pressure down at the sand face is predicted to be 1,200 PSI, okay? So our pump intake pressure is 1,000 pounds, but it looks like between the pump intake and the sand face, there's about a 200-pound difference because of the mainly hydrostatic, but the pressure losses between the pump intake and 1,000 feet below at the perforations, there's another 200-pound pressure loss. So we're able to account for that because we put the depth of the pump in here. All right, so this is kind of the end of our quick oil case, right? So we reviewed some different artificial lift methods, how to create an IPR. We're going to take a very brief 5-minute break here, but before we do that, any questions? Sorry, just one thing I just remembered. I was showing this to someone a little earlier, and they asked me, Graham, is there a way that we can modify these cases? You may notice right now we have these saved cases. We can view the inputs, but we can't modify or change them. So that's going to be something we're improving on. So all of these cases are going to eventually become a table, an editable table, where every row will be a case, and you can just at a glance see all of the inputs and all of the results. So at the moment, if you want to change or modify this case, you kind of have to delete it and then make it again. But don't worry, that's going to be improved pretty soon here. So I'll just hit pause. I'll shut up and ask for any feedback or any questions before we start our quick break here.
Yeah, just a question regarding the gauge pressure and casing pressure. So we've got 1,000 pounds down at the gauge, but so does that just get ignored?
Right here?
Yeah, so that's 1,000 at the gauge, and then we're saying that we have a higher pressure at surface.
Oh yeah, so the surface pressure is absolutely being ignored when we have an ESP in the well.
Okay, so that so it doesn't do anything with that data.
That's right, but the gauge pressure is an input. So for example, if I change this to, let's say 1,500 pounds, I'll admit this should actually say pump intake pressure. Okay, so if I change it to 1,500 pounds and I make a new VLP, now our ESP is predicted to create a sand face pressure of 1,700 pounds or 1,755. Okay, so it's basically taking the pump intake pressure of 1,500 pounds, converting it to a sand face pressure because of the 1,000-foot difference between the pump intake and the sand face. Just to illustrate that, again, let's pretend our pump intake pressure on our ASP is 500 pounds. We create that scenario. Our pressure at the sand face, which is 1,000 feet below the pump, is actually 633 pounds. So I'm not sure if I'm answering your question or not.
No, yeah, you answered the question. Essentially, the relevant input is the gauge pressure.
Yes, yeah. I think I made the request that in a case like this, we should call it ESP. It'll be more intuitive with what you're entering. Yeah. Any other questions or feedback?
Yeah, just for Patel, if you can send the link, we can have a look.
Yeah, and Patel, to send the link, you'll literally copy the URL wherever you're having the issue, and you can just paste it. Here, looks like you might have done
I'm checking here, Patel.
Okay. Cool. So we're going to get back together at 5 minutes after the hour here, and then we're going to go through a gas case where we have casing flow. We're going to see if the well's liquid loaded, and we're going to try different tubing sizes to see what that's going to do for the well. Okay. So we'll see you guys in 5 minutes. All right, we're back. So let's jump into this case. So again, what is a gas IPR? It's the exact same reason that we wanted to make an oil IPR. It's really to, predict that relationship between, in this case, a car, the position of our foot on the throttle and how much power the car is making, or, of course, what will the gas rate be at different bottom hole flowing pressures. So, this is a probably one of the only equations I know, and it's called the Rollin-Schellenhardt equation, or it's also called the back pressure equation, or it's called the C and N method. It's very similar to the oil Vogel one that we use, but just a little bit different. So we're trying to solve to figure out what will the gas rate be. Instead of a productivity index, we call it a flow coefficient, very similar. And we need to estimate what the current reservoir pressure is, and we need to tell what is the bottom hole flowing pressure. So really within these brackets is the drawdown. There's another consideration, an N value, or we call it the turbulent factor. And this number can be anywhere from 0.5 to 1. So 1 means we have laminar flow. There's no turbulence really near the wellbore that we have to worry about. But if 0.5 would be the opposite, the very turbulent flow, and this can change the shape of the IPR curve, kind of how bendy it is. Now, the way to actually calculate the N value, we have some description in the help file in the manual, that question mark, but we always just assume 1, a value of 1, laminar flow, unless we have some sort of other information. There's things like a multi-point or isochronal test that you can do to estimate the N value a few different ways, but we're going to just let it be 1 today, which is a kind of a safe assumption, unless we have other information for N value. Okay, so let's figure out how do we use or apply this to create a gas IPR. So just like an oil well, we need an estimate of what our current average reservoir pressure is, and I'm going to show you how to do that today. So in this case, 2,000 pounds, right? So we have our reservoir pressure here. We plug that in. Now we need kind of a sample. What is the gas rate today? So let's imagine it's 150,000 cubic feet a day at a flowing pressure of 1,200 pounds, right? So now we have 1 point, we have 2 points. Now, if you remember, for oil, this was a nice straight line, right? When we're above the bubble point. But for gas, it is a curve. Okay, it's a curve because gas is really compressible. Because of this, we notice that if the well has a very low drawdown, meaning we're kind of up here on the IPR curve, a small change in the flowing pressure will yield a big change in the rate, right? This is just part of the behavior when we're in this part of the IPR, up here on the left. But if we're kind of close to the max rate, if we have a high drawdown on the well, that a change in the flowing pressure over here will not cause as much of a rate change as we might hope. Okay, so this is just part of the behavior of the curve, and I think anyone here who's worked with gas wells a lot will probably agree with me that this is just comes with the territory with gas wells, right? So once we plug in our reservoir pressure and a current kind of sample rate and drawdown, we can solve for the C value, and now we can predict the rate at any flowing pressure along the curve. So this works really well for gas wells that are under 2,500 pounds reservoir pressure. But when we get above 2,500 pounds reservoir pressure, there's another consideration, and it really has to do with the viscosity. So for wells above 2,500 pounds reservoir pressure, we use this Fekovich deliverability curve method, and it really just introduces this pseudo pressure consideration. And don't worry, Whitson handles this for you. You don't have to specify pseudo pressure. In fact, it's the exact same inputs that we have for the one above, the more simple one. It's just accounting for the viscosity a bit better. So let's jump into Whitson and get started with this case. So I guess I'll hit pause. Any questions just on the IPR theory? It's pretty similar to oil wells. The shape is just a little bit different. Okay. we're going to go to projects. Up in the top left, we'll click on projects. Again, you're not going to see all these rows. We're going to add a project. Way on the far right, add project. We're going to call this your name, first, last name, and we're going to end it with the word Marcellus. Or Marcellus Wells. First name, last name, Marcellus Wells. And then we'll click save. Okay. You'll see that added as a project, and I'll get you to click on that row. First name, last name, Marcellus Wells. We're going to do the exact same thing as we did with all those Eagleford wells. We're going to do a mass upload. Okay, so we're going to go click on mass upload. Over on the right, we'll click on the blue cloud, and we're going to go navigate to our download folder where you would have saved that Marcellus data set, right? Remember early on we downloaded the Eagleford data set and we downloaded the Marcellus data set. If you don't have this, let me know. We'll make sure that you get it, or we'll direct you to it. Okay, so go ahead and select that Marcellus spreadsheet and then click save down on the bottom right. Yeah, and in the chat window, Mo just pasted in the link directly to save that Marcellus sample data set if you didn't do it earlier. All right, so we're going to focus on this well called well 31 Stork. Okay, well 31 Stork. Let's click on that. Well 31 Stork. Okay, we're going to go directly to our PVT. Okay, so PVT over on the left. And then we're going to click on this little square box with the pencil in it. All right, now, so this is a Marcellus well. There's no oil or condensate production. And so there's no way we can pick a GOR. There is no GOR, okay? So down here, we're going to change the method from GOR to dry wet gas. So let's click on dry wet gas instead of GOR. And we're going to enter over on the right our specific gravity of 0.65. And then we'll click save. Okay, so for anyone who missed that, we went and edited our fluid composition, changed our method from GOR to, oh, the well is 31 Stork. Yeah. And specific gravity of 0.65. Okay, so we've got our phase envelope here, no problem. We're going to click to the next tab down on the left here under PVT production data.
Maybe just people to confirm that you've gotten to the PVT, that you got the phase envelope.
Yes, good point, one. Yeah, if anyone isn't quite caught up here, let me know and we'll wait, or I can help you. And again, the well we've picked is well 31 Stork. We go to PVT on the left. We edit those fluid composition with the little blue box. We change the method originally from GOR. We change it to dry/wet gas. Enter our SG of 0.65 and then save. Okay, so we're going to click on this production data tab on the left. Now this well is strong. It started off production at almost 30 million cubic feet per day. Now we are, 2 years later, we're down to 5 million cubic feet per day. We've got some water, a little bit of water history here. The dashed line is our flowing casing pressure. And we'll notice this well does not have any tubing head pressure, and that's because there's no tubing in the well. It's just casing flow. And we can confirm that if we go to the bottom hole pressure button way over on the left. Okay, we'll go to bottom hole pressure. And up here, we're going to, beside well data, we're going to click on the little blue square for edit well data. So here we see our deviation survey that we bulk imported it through that template a minute ago. Way over on the right, we're going to click well data way over here. And you'll notice that there is only casing defined. There is no tubing. And the flow path says casing. So this is just confirming that we're flowing up the casing, and that's it, okay? Something to mention while we're in here is liquid loading, okay? So if we're still in here, there's this little droplet icon at the top. It says edit critical rate depth right there. When we click on it, we're presented with a few options here. And, people have their own preference when they ask, where am I liquid loaded? Am I liquid loaded down, in the casing? Am I liquid loaded at the end of the tubing? Am I liquid loaded at the wellhead? So this is going to let you specify where you want to answer the question of, where am I liquid loaded, right? When I have tubing in the well, I personally prefer to use the end of tubing as kind of the point where I'm checking if I'm liquid loaded or not. In this case, we can leave it as wellhead, but I might change it to the top perforation in this case, and you're welcome to do that if you want as well. So again, the way we got here, I'll just back out, is we're in bottom hole pressure. We go edit well data, little blue box. We can click on this drop icon, edit critical depth or rate depth, and change it from wellhead to top perforation, and then save out of here. Okay. Let's click this big blue button, calculate bottom hole flowing pressure. Okay, so below we see that the grouping between these different correlation results, it's pretty tight. This is gas with a little bit of water, so it's not quite as complicated as the Eagleford well where we had gas, water, and oil, right? So I'm going to pick gray, okay? And this well is lucky; it does have a gauge pressure in black, but gray is going to be my purple bottom hole pressure result. So way up in the top, I want you guys to do this, okay? So beside the calculate button, I want you to click the drop down and select gray. Gray is going to be used for all of our analyses going forward. This is going to be the resulting bottom hole pressure that we're going to use and leverage, okay? So beside the calculate button, click the drop down and select gray. The first thing I want to do is ask, is this well liquid loaded? If so, when did it happen? So to answer that question, we're going to go way down to the bottom left, back to that diagnostic plot, way down in the bottom left. Okay. Here, let's see here. Okay, so if anyone's seen this this plot already, we're going to get rid of it, and we have to do that by just temporarily changing our product. This is just something we're going to fix here, but we discovered it today. So if you're seeing this data set and you have no wells selected like I do, the way we're going to fix it is we're just going to change our product. So right now I want you guys to follow this. So go up to the project drop down here and go pick one of your other projects that you had worked on earlier. Just select it. Okay. And then after you do that, go back to your Graham project. So your Graham, or your first last name Marcellus wells, okay? And then we see that the data is cleared off as it should be. I'm going to give you guys a minute to do that. If anyone had trouble following those directions, let me know and I'll say them again. Okay. So this template that we see here, well, first of all, let's pick the well that we're looking at. So this is well 31 Stork. We're going to check it on right here like this. Well 31 Stork. We're going to change the template here. And we're going to scroll all the way to the bottom of the templates until we see liquid loading Turner Coleman. And then we'll pick that one, okay? All right, now if your scale doesn't, it looks like this, like mine, why don't we be safe? So up in the top right, there's a little blue square. It says reset zoom. We're going to click on that, okay? All right, if that didn't work, it didn't work for me. So then I actually just double clicked. I just double clicked on the screen here. Double clicking it will also reset the zoom like that, okay? I'm going to hit pause. Does anyone's screen not look like mine? Because I want to help make sure that it does. So we've got this well 31 Stork selected. We picked the template drop down that says liquid loading Turner Coleman. It was way at the bottom. And then I just adjusted my scale here to reset it to see everything. Does everyone kind of see what I see here too? Yeah. Okay, I see a thumbs up. So what we're looking at here is the red is the well's actual gas rate, 30 million a day down to 5 million a day. The blue line is the critical lift rate according to Turner or Coleman. So for anyone who hasn't considered or used, considered liquid loading in the past, we think about this golf ball as my liquid droplet that's come out of the reservoir into the wellbore. And there's really two effects going on. We've got gravity that's trying to pull the water down. It's trying to make it pool up and liquid load the well and put extra back pressure against the sand face. We don't want that, right? The other effect going on is drag, right? So the gas is dragging on the liquid droplet and it's trying to pull it up and drag it to the top. So we have these two opposing effects going in place. Now, Turner figured out that what the minimum velocity is needed to lift this liquid. Okay, so that minimum velocity or critical lift velocity, it's called, we call it the Turner velocity, and we just convert it from a velocity into a rate, right? We know the diameter of the casing, so we know the velocity we need, we just convert it into a minimum rate. So in this case, it is about initially 7 million cubic feet per day was required to lift liquid up the casing in this well. Today we need more like 5.2 million cubic feet per day to lift liquid up the well. Coleman just came along. He thought Turner was being a little bit pessimistic, and he said, let's modify that by 20%. And so Coleman and Turner is just a 20% difference between them for what the rate needs to be. So what am I seeing here? I'm seeing that this well is probably liquid loaded today, right? Our rate now has dropped below the critical lift rate. So, in terms of just leaving casing in the well, I'm probably going to expect to see some slugging and some liquid loading problems now. So it's a great time to plan some tubing, right? Or something to mitigate liquid loading. Let's go back up to our analysis here. So I think we're going to go directly to something called the flowing material balance. Okay. Normally production engineers may not use this technique. And if you notice that there's nothing appearing, I want you to click on this little well drop down thing at the top, right up here at the well. And we're going to make sure that we pick well 31 Stork. Okay. Make sure you pick well 31 Stork here where my mouse is under wells. Okay. Is there anyone who doesn't see what I'm seeing right now on your plot? Okay. the goal here is we want to try to estimate what is the current reservoir pressure, right? We need that for the IPR curve. The old way to do that would be to shut the well in, let it build up. That doesn't make sense anymore. So how else can we estimate the current reservoir pressure without shutting the well in? Well, the answer is the flowing material balance. This is a technique that reservoir engineers use. And we're going to do it right now. So let's take this black line that's kind of at the bottom of this blue plot here. We're going to grab it. We're going to drag it up like that. Kind of put it in the middle of the blue data. Then we're going to grab the right tip of this black line. We're going to drag it up a little bit. And what we're trying to do, and we'll grab the left side. We're going to try to draw a trend line through the data here. Okay. Okay, so we have just done a flowing material balance analysis. What are the results? Well, right now we've estimated that this well has contacted almost 9 BCF of gas in the reservoir. This is not an EUR number. This is a contacted volume of gas of 9 BCF. So this is what the flowing material balance does. The thing that we care about for the IPR is the average reservoir pressure. So down on the plot below, this well started way up at 3,000 PSI before we had any production. But as we've produced the well and depleted it, we're all the way down to about 1,300 PSI now. So this is our current average reservoir pressure that we've just estimated without shutting the well in. Okay, so we're going to use this in a second to make our IPR curve. Is there anyone who's had a little bit of trouble with this? Like, is your plot looking okay? Are you able to kind of, if you put your mouse down here, is it around the 1,300 pound range on the black line near the end? It's all right. All right, I don't hear any issues. Let's jump down to nodal analysis. Down here on the bottom left, nodal analysis. Now, if you remember with the oil well that we just did, we kind of manually typed in the bottom hole pressure. We manually typed in the oil rate, all that. We're not going to do that manually. We are going to leverage the production history to tell us all of this information, right? So we see the little blue calendar icon where my mouse is here, right? We're going to click on that. Now this is our well's production history. And I want us to go over to the right, kind of where my mouse is here. And notice that we've got our gas rate right about here. It says 624. That's day number 624. Kind of around there. I want you to just go ahead and click on the red line near where my mouse is here. Okay. What we've just done is we've selected that date as a sample. And in the table on the left, we see that at that date, the gas rate's 4.8 million cubic feet per day. Our water rate, our bottom hole pressure is 847 pounds. And look here, average reservoir pressure, 1,376 pounds. That's come from the flowing material balance analysis that you just did, right? So we're getting the information that we need to make an IPR curve just from sampling whatever point we pick from the well's production history. Okay, once we've done that, we're going to go down and click save. So again, if you haven't done this yet, we've just gone ahead and picked some data point near the end here, near where my mouse is, and then we'll click save. And we should all have an IPR curve. If you don't have an IPR curve, just make a quick comment there. How did I get to this screen? So to this screen, we went down to nodal analysis down here on the bottom left. And then we click this little calendar button right here. This calendar button will take us here. We'll move our mouse over to the right and kind of click one click on the gas rate, kind of near the end here. And then once we've done that, we'll click save and we'll see an IPR. Now, if you're not getting this curve, it might mean that you didn't do the flowing material balance analysis. Maybe your trouble. And so in that case, you can just go ahead and type in your reservoir pressure here to be 1377 if you don't have an IPR. Kimberly, are you okay with that? Okay, great. Yeah, no worries. Cool. Let's go ahead and create our outflow curve. So we're going to go ahead and say create VLP, top left button. The reason we didn't have to manually type in what our casing head pressure is, it took it from the sample date that we already selected in that calendar. Okay, so we're just recreating today's conditions, both on the IPR and with the tubing curve. So when the outflow curve or the VLP is solid, that means we're not liquid loaded. When it's dashed, it means we are liquid loaded. We're below that critical lift rate. So this really just confirms what we saw earlier down in the diagnostic plot, right? We looked at the well's history to see when it fell below the critical lift rate, and we say it looks like it might be below it right now. We've just confirmed that by creating this VLP curve. So what are some ways we can fix liquid loading? Our whole goal is to increase the velocity of the gas. Okay, one way to do that is to make the gas expand, right? And we can do that by lowering the flowing pressure at the wellhead. So if we could put a wellhead compressor on or just reduce the line pressure somehow, then that would be a way that we could increase the velocity down in the bottom of the wellbore. So to do that, let's go down here where it says casing pressure in the bottom left. Right now, we're at 631 PSI casing pressure. Remember, there's no tubing in the well, right? We're just flowing up the casing. Let's reduce it to 200 PSI. And we'll click Create VLP. Okay, now we should have two VLPs, right? The top one is kind of our current condition. You know, we're at 4.8 million cubic feet per day. We're liquid loaded or about to liquid load. Or if we can get a compressor, reduce the line pressure to 200 PSI, our rate is going to jump up to 7.3 million cubic feet per day. Okay, so 2.5 million cubic feet per day increase, and we're going to be unloaded, right? We're going to be able to remain above the critical lift rate all the way down to about 3.1 million cubic feet per day. So that's a great solution if we can get our hands on a compressor or drop the line pressure somehow at the wellhead. We want to save this case, okay? So up on the top, we'll say save case. I'm going to call it casing flow, 200 PSI casing head pressure. And then we'll click save. Okay. Now, what's another way that we can increase the velocity down at the bottom of the well? Right? Maybe we can't get a compressor. Well, what if we reduce the cross-sectional area to flow? Right? We got this big casing now. If we put tubing in there, our rate may be the same, but our velocity will increase because there's less area for it to flow through, and that will make the water shoot up the well. So to do this, we are going to click this little new edit well configuration button down here. Okay. Edit well config, that little blue box with a pencil in it. We'll click it. We need to add some tubing. Okay, so beside tubing data over here, we've got the plus symbol. We're going to click it. Now we've added a row. So we're going to use our triple stack pancake icon down here by tubing and click on that. Let's start with 2 7/8. So I'm going to scroll down. I see 2 7/8, and I'm going to pick the 8.6 pound per foot option here, right here. So 2 7/8 OD, 8.6 pounds per foot. And we're just going to click that once. Okay, So what do we want our tubing landed depth to be? I'm going to put it at 7,300 feet. Okay. And then we're going to, one more thing, we have to change our flow path, right? We're not flowing up the casing anymore. We're going to flow up the tubing. Okay, so flow path will be tubing. And then we're going to say save down on the bottom right. Did anyone have any trouble with that? Okay. All right, so we're gonna specify our tubing head pressure. I think it's 631 pounds. By the way, if you can't remember what the line pressure was, all we have to do is click on the calendar again. And we'll notice that under casing pressure, it says 631. Okay, this is just a nice little reminder if we forgot what it was. We'll exit this screen X, and we know it's 631 for our line pressure. It doesn't matter what our casing pressure is now because we're going to be using the tubing as our pressure constraint, and that's our flow path. So 631 in tubing head pressure, and go ahead, create VLP. Yeah, good. Yeah, create VLP. I think I did something wrong because I'm noticing the liquid loading rate is higher than I expect. Maybe I'll just refresh this. No, I think I know what the problem is here. This has to do with where I picked liquid loading depth. Okay, so I assume you guys are probably seeing what I'm seeing here as well. What is happening is I had specified to report liquid loading at the top perf, and it's doing that. It's reporting liquid loading at the top perf, but what I care about now is liquid loading at the end of tubing. So to fix that, we're all going to go back up to this bottom hole pressure.
Change it from the well configuration there, Graham. Yeah.
Thank you, Mo. I forgot. So yes, so we're going to stay down in Nodal Analysis. We're going to go back in where we specified our tubing diameter this little blue square. Right, this is where we have our flow path as tubing, and up in the top right, it says edit critical rate depth. We'll click on that and we'll change it to end of tubing. And then save. And then save again down in the bottom right. We're going to rerun this VLP. I'm just clicking refresh to help it update here. Mo, do you see if I've done anything wrong here? Okay, he's looking at it.
Here, yeah, no, I'm checking.
Yeah.
Did you mention that casing head pressure needed to be 200 with tubing pressure?
You know what? The casing head pressure does not matter in this case because we're using the tubing head pressure as kind of the input. You know, for basically this compute through flowing side, which is the tubing in this case. So so the casing pressure input doesn't matter in this case.
I just fixed it there, Graham.
Awesome.
Try to refresh.
Thank you. Okay. Mo, do you think? Okay, I'm curious about the students on the line here. Does anyone? I want everyone to go ahead and click refresh up in your browser, and we're hoping that our outflow curve, our VLP curve, looks something like this, where it's solid for quite a ways, like this. If anyone can tell me what you're seeing, it'd be helpful.
Yeah, is anyone able to see the same? And if not, just tell me, and then I'll go and check on.
Okay.
Mine looks similar.
So I heard someone says that theirs looks similar, and
let me just check
okay.
Christy here.
Yeah, Christy, yeah, not getting the VLP even after the refresh. And my VLP disappeared. So yeah, if you haven't, you can try.
Yeah, so if your
yes,
VLP
please.
is not showing up,
Mhm.
just let me see if that will work here. A second. Yeah, I'm trying to check here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so one thing that you can do, maybe Graham, you can show that. It seems like there's an issue, and I don't know what that is with when you pick end of tubing there in the left.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just go there, Graham, on your end, just to show everyone what to do. So you do edit well configuration. You go to the edit critical rate depth, and then you change it from if you do end of tubing, just click there, end of tubing. Yeah, end of tubing. That's where it's causing the issue. So you need to change it from end of tubing. Just do specified, because we know that the end of tubing is at 7,300. So if you can do 7,299 in reality. So just do 7,250, 7,299, something like close to the end of tubing, and that should give you the same result. Yeah, that's good.
Good. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that one more time just to show people. So.
Yeah, that's great. Sorry about that. That's just it's a small thing that came up now. Yeah, it seems like
Absolutely.
that fixed it, Graham.
Perfect. Yeah. So I see people are saying it worked. I'm going to show the step one more time. So under new well config, we'll go edit. We'll go up to the top right where we says this edit critical rate depth. We'll change the drop down to the word specified. And we're entering the number 7299, which is basically right at the end of tubing. We're forcing it to show that depth. Yeah. And save.
And then you just create the VLP again, and then you'll get
right. And then create VLP if we haven't done that yet. Yeah. So the point of this is, when we install tubing in a well that only has casing, we're recognizing that we're introducing friction, right? Because it's a smaller flow path, and that's why our bottom well pressure is expected to increase slightly and reduce our rate a little bit. But the benefit has to do with the velocity. So the velocity is a lot higher with tubing installed, and we're able to keep the well unloaded all the way down to 1.1 million cubic feet per day. Right, so that's a benefit. So we are going to save this case, okay? Save case, and we're going to call it 2 7/8. We call it 631 psi tubing head pressure. 2 7/8, 631 tubing head pressure. I'm going to be lazy, by the way. I'm going to copy this name. I'm going to reuse it here. Our next sensitivity. We'll save that. So our next sensitivity is 2 3/8, right? to do that, we're going to go edit well configuration. And Mo, I should not have to, oh no, I don't have to mess around with that. Again, I don't think it'll stay the same. Good.
I don't
All
think
I'm
so.
No, yeah, you're right. So all I'm going to do is change the tubing size. So we're going to go to our little pancake picture here beside tubing. And we're going to go find some 2 3/8. And I'm going to pick 6.6 as my pound per foot. So 2 3/8, 6.6 pounds per foot. We'll click save down on the bottom right. And we'll create VLP. Now I want to view my 2 7/8 inch case. So I'm going to scroll down to the bottom and make sure I show it. I check it on 2 7/8. So here we see casing flow, liquid loaded, 2 7/8, unloaded, slightly more friction, and 2 3/8, more friction, but we can remain unloaded down to 800,000 cubic feet per day. So it's all a compromise. You know, just based on this well, I would probably pick 2 7/8. You know, I'm not going to increase that much friction, increase the bottom hole pressure very much, and I can still delay liquid loading a long time. Okay. Or if you can get a compressor, you can just keep the casing in the well, get a really big jump in your gas rate, 2.5 million cubic feet per day, and delay liquid loading down to about 3 million cubic feet per day. So, you know, this is for, you know, for gas wells, these are the typical kind of what ifs we want to do when we switch from casing to tubing, right? Any questions about the gas IPR VLP?
I assume this gets affected by plunger lift. Like if we set up our
Right. Yeah, so for plunger lift, we don't really have any sort of predictive methods right now. Really, and Mo can correct me, but for plunger lift, it's mainly used for our historical bottom hole pressure conversions where if we have a liquid level or fluid level, we would use the annulus and calculate the bottom hole pressure that way. So yeah, we don't really have any like mechanical methods to help deal with plunger lift now, I think, right, Mo?
No.
Yeah,
that's correct.
We're open to any methods or documents or papers that suggest some practical ways. So please send them if you're aware of them. Yeah, I'm just looking at the help file here because we just have some illustrations about, you know, why we recommend obviously the fluid levels and things like that if we have them for plunger lift. Any other questions about a gas IPR VLPs? Okay, so the last thing I want to do is I'm going to show this to you guys. You don't have to follow along. And what I want to show you is reviewing many wells to see if or when they've liquid loaded. So in this Marcellus data set, I am going to pick all the wells. I'm going to mass run the bottom hole flowing pressures. So right now it's calculating these on the cloud. I'm going to go down to my diagnostic plot. And this is where we had looked at our liquid loading template. Right, so for our Stork well, we know that it liquid loaded very recently, but we can very easily go ahead and look at other wells too. So once we calculate the bottom hole pressures, Let's see if it might still be calculating it. Here we go. So here's a well where, we started at, 24 million a day. We're above the critical lift rate, so we're not liquid loaded, right? But do you guys see, do you guys notice how the critical lift rate suddenly became lower? I'm going to ask anybody, what would cause that? What would cause our historical critical lift rate to get lower?
Tubing installation.
Yeah, exactly. So this is a bit of a clue, right? We see that our rate dropped here historically, and the calculated bottom hole flowing pressure also increased here, right? And when we install tubing, again, it increases the velocity, and so that means that we need a lower rate in order to remain unloaded. So we can always confirm that. That's what our experience is telling us. Is with casing we needed 6 million a day to remain unloaded. With tubing we only need 1.5 million a day. So we could always verify that's what happened historically in our wellbore editor here. I've got to pick that well here. I think it's this one. Yeah, so we can see initially this well had casing flow, and then later it had tubing 2 7/8 installed, right? So this whole diagnostic plot thing is really handy for just toggling through wells, seeing this one's not liquid loaded yet. 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 Right. I'm trying to find one that's liquid loaded, but again, the whole point is we can do this really quickly and easily by batch running those bottom hole pressures, right? Okay. Instead of a break, I just want to kind of wrap up for you guys. All we're going to talk about next really briefly is kind of what's coming around the corner for you in terms of nodal analysis. Is that what you want? Are there other things that you need for it? And then I'll kind of give you some resources that are available as well. So this is a plot for people with gas lift, and it's actually Diamondback who approached me with this. So, when we increase our gas lift rate on a well, we hope that it's going to result in a liquid rate increasing as well. And that's going to be true up until a point, right? At some point, the more gas we're stuffing down the annulus, it all has to come back up the tubing. So if we inject too much, if we over inject, we're creating a lot of friction coming up the tubing, and then we're going to see an increase in our bottom hole pressure and a decrease in our rate. Okay. So this is really a plot where all we need to produce this plot is our wellbore description and the IPR curve that we have today, which we can get really easily and automatically in Whitson. So once we kind of see this mechanical max rate, we can plot, well, this is where we are now. This is our current rate today. Therefore, we've got this uplift potential if we can increase our gas lift rate by X, okay? So this diagnostic is going to be coming in about 2 weeks. You'll be able to just refresh Whitson and see this gas lift optimizer under your nodal section in Whitson, okay? Later, we're going to give you the option to do a lot of sensitivities on this. What if I change my gas lift injection pressure, my tubing size, the tubing pressure, my water gas ratio, my GOR, right? So initially it's going to look like this, and then soon after we'll have a whole bunch of sensitivities you can run on it. Now, can I just ask anybody on the call, is this a plot that you've kind of created manually before, or have you ever done this for your gas lift wells?
Yeah, this is of pretty good interest. I'd be interested in also if you could actually plot the critical rate on here as well.
Okay, so kind of like gas lift assisted for gas wells to avoid liquid loading? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, exactly. So what's the minimum rate that we can get away with?
Yeah. And sorry, who was speaking? Who was just speaking there?
Yeah, it's Flavio.
Okay. Good idea. So the next thing that'll evolve from this is really to automate this. So every well has a different IPR, different gas lift configuration, and so it will make sense for us to just batch produce these gas lift optimized curves for every well, and that will be coming. So once you do this for all the wells, you'll be able to report the uplift liquid rate that each well has available through gas lift optimization. So once you can report that, that means you can rank it. Okay, so theoretically we'll be able to rank the delta rate through a gas lift rate change. Okay, and this means you can prioritize things. You can start planning where and how you're going to change your gas lift operations. So the other thing that we're going to be developing is really the whole wellbore life cycle, right? So initially, we may start with natural or an ESP maybe, then maybe we will switch to natural flow or to gas lift, and then later maybe we would go to rod pump or something like that. So the whole goal with Nodal Analysis and Whitson is to let you plan the entire wellbore life cycle for artificial lift. The key to that is really going to be the reservoir inflow potential. So a lot of the reservoir engineers at your office are already using the numerical reservoir model in Whitson for reservoir modeling and forecasting, but we're going to tie it to all of these artificial lift methods so you can start scheduling and predicting not only the rate response today for these operational changes, but what will that mean in 3 months, 6-month cum difference as you're planning the well's life, right? So this is our long-term goal. The other thing, for gas wells is right now we can obviously predict the minimum rate to lift liquids, but when in time will that occur, right? So again, this is going to require the reservoir model that your engineers are already building, but just predicting when will that mean liquid loading in the future, okay, on a time scale. Flowing pressure gradient. So this is going to come after we get the gas lift optimization curve out in a couple of weeks. So this is simply where you'll have a wellbore, you'll input a flowing pressure and a rate, and it'll predict the flowing pressure through the wellbore with depth. You'll be able to separate, friction from hydrostatic pressure losses. You can look at velocities through the well, and just like gas lift, if you put in all those valve details for depth and open close pressure, you'll be able to see kind of where there's a step change in your flowing pressure based on where the gas lift is being introduced into the tubing. So just kind of on a more big scale about the roadmap, this is our timeline. A lot of these functionalities are aimed at reservoir engineers, but for production engineers, this is what we're talking about here, and this is going to be one of my personal focuses for the next couple of years at least, and I'm looking for a lot of feedback. So kind of just giving you guys a bit of preview about what's around the corner, I want to ask you, what is missing? What do you need to have the Nodal Analysis tool that you wish you had? Anything beyond what we've looked at today?
Is there any thought towards long-term output files for network modeling?
I'm so glad you asked. Have you ever used Piper?
No, I haven't.
No? Okay. So yeah, so you're talking about like a surface hydraulic model, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so there was a product called Piper that Fiquet made 1982, believe it or not, is when they started making it. And it's like a surface hydraulic calculator. So we just hired a gentleman named Carl Zorel, and he created Piper and a lot of the other Fiquet software. So he's a Whitson employee starting next week. And so yes, we're gonna be making a surface hydraulic model, and it will ultimately integrate with the numerical reservoir models that people are making in Whitson already. So the goal will be, if you are going to schedule a line loop or a pump or tying in new wells in your schedule, it'll predict the pressure at all the wells, and it'll even predict the pressure down the wellbore, the new rate response from the numerical reservoir model. It'll be like an iterative process. So as you forecast, it'll predict the new hydraulics throughout the system and the rate response from each reservoir model, for doing planning, like I said, schedule, line loops, compression pumps, and new well tie-ins. So that's on the roadmap. We didn't mention it here because it's a little bit of a secret still.
I appreciate it. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Will the liquid loading calculator be able to push back those dates and or somehow notate them in the RTA or other modeling sections?
Yeah, so kind of like this right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you would like almost like a table that reports the date when liquid loading would occur.
Yes.
Sure. Okay. That should not be a problem.
But I guess what you're showing here is that when it does go to critical, it'll make the lines dashed in our various other models.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, so like you said, various other models. Like, which other models would you like to see this in?
I just, doing some of the RTA work, I always want to be careful if my well's already liquid loaded, and it would be great to be able to visualize that so that I'm not using erroneous data.
Yes, so if you're familiar in Harmony, there's a liquid loading filter.
Yes, that's what. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're applying the same thing very soon, and I think if we look at our roadmap, here we go. Sorry, I changed screens here. Yeah, so this whole filtering and commenting thing, that's where we're going to be applying the liquid loading filter. And just like in Harmony, you'll be able to see it through every RTA analysis.
Perfect. Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah. Something that I always wanted in Harmony that we're going to be putting in soon is kind of like an annotation thing. So in the production editor in Whitson, for every row, you'll be able to put some sort of action or like a event. So like you'll just say at this date tubing installed, at this date offset frac hit, at this date shut in, or whatever you want, right? So once you specify those as events, you'll be able to visualize them as little annotations throughout the analysis. So I'm excited because I always wanted that. But I'm just writing down the tabular reporting of future liquid loading. Okay, just some resources to leave you guys with. This recording from today will be sent out. I'll send a follow-up. If you do want to learn more about bottom hole pressure theory, a lot of equations and explanations, that is available for free to all of our Whitson partners in this training course, which is recorded. I'll send that out as well. If you haven't used Whitson support, well, if you have used it, you know that our response time is pretty amazing, actually less than 2 minutes. So just email support@whitson.com. It'll go to a whole bunch of people, including me. We'll get back to you right away. Within the help file, we've got some more details about bottom hole pressure calculations, about nodal analysis. Our website is here. So this is where all of our courses are scheduled and available throughout the year. If you want to learn really anything PVT, RTA, you can see it there. And on LinkedIn, this is where we do a lot of announcements for new releases, new features, events, conferences, and stuff like that. So make sure you follow it if you haven't already. So I'm going to sign off now and let you guys go. And I will stay on the line for a little bit longer if there's anyone who wants to stick around and ask any questions. So I want to thank you for your time today, learning about nodal analysis in Whitson. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Graham. This was good.
I appreciate it.